Hi everyone, and welcome back to Matthaei at Home. I'm Megan, and today we're going to be making mini landscapes inspired by penjing. Penjing is the ancient Chinese art of depicting miniature landscapes likely dating back to the Han or Qing dynasties in the 1st century. Here at Matthaei, we have a couple of stunning penjing as part of our bonsai and penjing garden. Inspired by penjing, bonsai is a similar but different practice from Japan, which celebrates the art of miniaturizing trees and shrubs in pots. Our gardens here celebrate the horticultural techniques which allow for these miniature trees and plants to survive in both bonsai and penjing. If you have no idea what the word horticulture means, this word just refers broadly to the field of garden or landscape cultivation. When I look at these incredible tiny plants, I can't help but wonder how they stay so small and survive for so long. For example, some of the trees in our gardens are nearly 1,000 years old, and yet they're extremely similar in size to those that are nearly 50. Bonsai and penjing plants are kept so small by careful tend and training. When they're repotted every 2 to 3 years, gardeners trim their roots to keep their growth slow and steady. Additionally, being confined in small pots keep the trees from ever being able to grow too big. But how do they grow in such intricate shapes and forms? Gardeners use a careful combination of techniques that include pinching off branches and wiring the branches and trunks of trees to help them grow even in ways that they wouldn't normally. And that's how they encourage these remarkable styles. I think the coolest thing about bonsai trees is that there's not really any bonsai seeds. A tree is a tree. In bonsai, it's about how you take care of the tree that matters. Bonsai can simply be grown from regular tree seeds or from a cutting of another wild tree. Then they're kept in these certain shapes and styles through careful tending. If you took a seed from one of these mini trees, planted it outside, and left it for 50 years, it would grow into a completely normal wild tree. The plants and trees used in penjing landscapes are the exact same way too. It's so cool. Today we're going to celebrate these forms of horticultural art by creating our own miniature landscapes inspired by those of penjing. It's a perfect excuse to get outside, enjoy the new warm weather, and bring home a beautiful miniature landscape made with foraged and recycled materials. Like usual, you aren't going to need much. You'll want to recycle a tray maybe from a used pizza or shoebox. This is what you're going to keep your mini landscape on. You're also going to want a container to keep your plants in, such as a plant pot or a reused plastic container, which will cut drainage holes in. You'll need some potting soil, and you'll need some drainage rocks. You're also going to definitely need some Elmer's glue or a hot glue gun to construct your landscape. And finally, you're going to need some foraged materials, so let's head outside and forage. Alright, now that we're outside, let's get foraging. The first thing that I'm going to look for is lots of rocks. I think that this will really set the stage for our mini landscape and allow for us to create some really interesting terrain. I'm also going to keep an eye out for fallen bark pieces, sticks, pine cones, acorns, and other nature bits that I think will allow us to create a really interesting landscape. I want to have a wide variety of natural materials so I can really get creative and experiment when I'm designing my landscape. I still want to keep in mind to take only what I need, but if I still have some materials left over at the end, that's okay. I can always return whatever I don't use back into the environment, so long as I haven't put any glue on it. I think I also want to incorporate some sort of mini plant. It's totally possible to find some sort of small perennial plant or flower outside, especially in the spring. We just want to take care that we avoid digging up any protected species such as trillium, dwarf lake iris, marsh marigold, or any native orchid species. There's a couple of other protected species out there, so just make sure that you identify your plant and check its status in Michigan before you collect it. There are still some great, really common plants that you could try to forage too. For example, swamp buttercup, false rue anemone, and mayapple are all really common species here that are also perennial plants. You can also buy native perennial seeds or starters from native plant nurseries. If you're foraging, make sure that when you collect the plants, you're picking up the whole plant, including its roots, and not just gathering the stem. It may be really helpful to bring a small trowel to loosen up the soil around the plant in order to help you harvest all of its roots. Alright, now once you've foraged everything that you need for your mini landscape, let's start designing. The coolest thing about this craft is that you can be so creative and really design your mini landscape however you want. Before I even started building, I decided that I wanted my landscape to tell a bit of a story. I want people to look at my landscape and wonder and think about what it would be like to live here. So with that in mind, I started laying out this foundation. I decided I wanted to cover my pot in pieces of bark, so I sort of organized what that would look like and then began gluing them down. Once I was finished with that and I decided I really liked how it looked, I was ready to move on with the rest of my landscape. At this point, I knew exactly where I wanted my pot to be, so I decided to put down this first and anchor the rest of my landscape to that. I used a pen to mark out where the holes in my pot were and then punched holes in the cardboard. I did this so I can really easily water my plants without worrying about the cardboard getting wet. I'm going to keep my plant outside all year round. If you want to keep yours inside, I would skip this step and instead add drainage rocks to the bottom of your plant pot. At this point, I began to lay out the rest of my landscape. I kept fiddling with it until I liked how everything was laid out, and then I took some pictures of my landscape from all different angles so I could remember how it was. I didn't glue anything down until I was confident that I liked how everything was laid out, because once I use the hot glue, it's a lot harder to reverse any of my decisions. So once I liked where everything was, this is when I began to hot glue everything down. If you're not worried about your structure blowing away in the wind, you can skip this step, but I'm going to keep mine outside like I said, so I really need it to be glued down. Once everything is finished being glued down, you're free to do whatever you want with your landscape. You'll want to fill up your plant pot with soil, which I somehow didn't manage to film, and then put your plant inside of it, and then your mini landscape will be complete. Now I can look at my mini landscape all the time and imagine myself standing at the base of this beautiful plant, looking over at the Rocky Mountain. I'm so happy. Now that my mini landscape is complete, I'm so excited to see how my plant changes throughout the year. The nice thing about perennial plants is their ability to change year after year, so we can fully appreciate the cycle that the plant goes through in each year of its life and see how that changes our mini landscape as well. I love how my mini landscape turned out, and I had such a blast making it. I hope you had fun as well. If you enjoyed learning about bonsai and penjing and want to see some incredible plants, come check out our bonsai and penjing gardens here at Matthaei. I hope that you come visit soon.